This meeting is being recorded.
All right. Good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to our last series, but should have been the third one of our Connecting Summative ELPAC test types with California NGSS. And this is geared towards our middle school teachers and leaders. So this is 6th through 8th grade. My name is Mariano Aranda. I'm the science coordinator for SBCSS. And my email is mariano.aranda@sbcss.net. And today we have a great lineup for you so that we could go ahead and engage our students in both understanding the ELPAC and also NGSS. And with us today, we have Rosemary Hyder and then Paulette Donnellan. So they'll introduce themselves now.
All right, Rosemary Hyder. Been a coordinator here with Mariano in the Multilingual Education Department, and I'm excited to be here to go through our last session with you. And Paulette.
I am Paulette Donnellan. I'm with Lego Education. I'm a key account manager, and I'm excited to be here to share Lego Education with you all today.
Now, this is my third presentation. I still can't get your last name correct, Paulette. So I apologize for that. So here is our agenda for today. So we're going to give you a brief introduction and our learning intentions of why we're doing this as well. And then we're going to go engage into our portion of modeling in terms of Lego education. And then we'll come back and we'll explain a little bit more about the ELPAC task types and then also how it's related to our NGSS CAS, or the California Science Assessment.
All right, our learning intentions for today. So intentional approaches for integrating English language development standards with a focus area of NGSS. We're always trying to see where we can support our students, and in grades 6 through 8, we know we are integrating. A lot of our teachers are trying to, and our science teachers need that. Where can they help our English learners in their classrooms? Incorporating ELPAC practice tests when addressing the 4 domains of reading, listening, writing, and speaking. And then Mariana is going to be going through incorporating NGSS performance expectation with DCI, CCC, and SCP. I think I've got one of those acronyms down now, Mariana, but still working on learning the other 2.
And then obviously we want to make sure that there's so many different acronyms within, right, the science and engineering practices, but one of them, number 2, that we're going to be focusing on today is modeling. And that's what we're going to show in terms of how is it supported both in the speaking and the listening portion of our presentation today. So that's something that NGSS supports. And the why?
Yes, so again, same thing with the intentional approaches. There is a great resource from Tulare County that we did borrow some of the things from. They have it posted on CDE's website, and there's lots of resources and links there for you. So we took that and then saw where we could come together, Mariano and I, and talk about how we can incorporate what we know, our background, and how we can serve our districts in our county here. So.
Yeah, and then in terms of NGSS, and most of you know in terms of the CAS, this is going to be our first year, and I just got off a meeting with CISC Science Subcommittee, and California Department of Education is putting on the California board in March the petition to run the California Science Test with the intention of having it on the dashboard. And they don't know yet the time frame, but we're hoping at least getting 1 data year next year, and by hopefully 23, 24, have it available on the California dashboard as well. So that's what the talks are right now. But having, again, that expectation that there will be a science test that will be reflective of the district scores into the dashboard in 2024. Right, and with that, we'll have Paulette.
Okay, I need to unmute myself. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have to stop sharing first. It just came up with that message. So excited to share this all with you. So 1 second. There. On a presentation mode here. Let me know when you all can see my
can see
screen.
it.
I said,
Oh, mhm.
All right, so I am with Lego Education. I'm going to go ahead and skip through because I already did the introduction, but just as a side note, I've been with Lego Education for four years now. It'll be 4 years in April. And I've been in the ed tech industry for over 30 years. So I also, in my spare time, I serve on the San Diego County Board of Education and am passionate about supporting students all over. And I know, Dr. Bowman, you made a comment earlier, doing what you can for your students, which I love that. So doing what's right for those guys. So this, I always like to start off with a quote because Lego Education is all about playful learning. And so you don't stop playing because you get old. You get old because you stop playing. So, so throughout all of this today, we're going to have an opportunity to play a little bit. So the first question I have for you is I have this traditional, it's a Lego brick. It's a 2x4 brick with 8 studs on it. And my question for you, and I'm going to invite everybody to either throw it in the chat or just kind of, give me a number verbally if you'd like. How many different ways, if I took 6 of these 2x4 bricks, could I combine or build with them? So for example, here's one way. So here's 6 bricks stacked up. Here's number 2. That's another way of doing it. So how many different ways do you think I can put those bricks together? Any guesses?
I'll say at least 36 different ways.
Oh, 36, good number. Is my other 2 any numbers? Mariano's on mute.
I don't know. Let's see, 6 blocks, 6. I'll say 6.
I like your number. 6 times 6 is 36. I thought originally, Paulette, and I know the number too, but I thought like it was in the thousands, like 1,000 different ways.
Ooh.
That was my original thought that I had. So I was like, yeah, 1,000, because then you could flip them the other way. And then, I mean, with the other experience, I'm sorry, I'm taking a little bit more time, but like each time that my little duck breaks, like I put it back together and it's never the same way. So.
Nope.
1,000 ways. That's what my original guess was.
So I'm about to blow your minds. So it's over
Uh-oh.
900.
Oh my God.
What?
Okay, don't tell anybody.
Okay.
Don't tell anybody my guess.
Ms. Bowman, I said 6.
Only if you put me in a conversation with Ida.
So this is
Oh my.
we're gonna put this to the test, but that's over 915 million ways. Same color.
Wow.
If it were different colored bricks, this number would go up tremendously. So let's do this. I gave you this little package that you have there. In that package, okay, put it in front of my face here. I want you to grab these 6 bricks out of this package that you have in front of you. So grab those 6 bricks. There's 2 plates in there. One of the plates is actually a 2x4. It's not a 2x3 like it shows here. Use a 2x4. So the 2 red plates, the big 2x4 traditional brick. You've got a 2x2 I brick, a regular 2x2 brick, and then a 1x2.
Okay.
All these things that I have to learn at Lego, how to describe my bricks. Let me know when you have all your bricks in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yes.
guys are... All right, so I'm going to ask you an important question because it's important that we build upon existing knowledge. Do you know what a duck is?
Yes.
The animal?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I thought this was a trick question. That was too simple.
It's so simple. It's important that we build upon existing knowledge, right? So, so there's no right or wrong answers, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds to build a duck. So go ahead and start building out. And actually, this goes for a minute, but if you guys are done before then, you let me know. You can hear, since I don't have grandchildren, I have a grand doggy, and he's out barking. So must be out there playing fetch. Okay, 30 seconds is down. You guys need another 30 seconds?
I think I might have it. Okay.
All right, Rosemary, you got one? All right, let's share your ducks. What do you guys got?
Paulette, it's really the first time you did it. It was so stressful. The 30 seconds.
I gave you more time.
Ooh.
Or Marianne, put it really up close to your camera. I gotta see. Oh yeah,
Is
look
that
at
better?
that. Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh, we just about got the same one.
Uh-huh.
Hyder, oh, look at Hyder. The Hyder, where your duck's legs?
Dr. Bowman, you used more pieces, Dr. Bowman. You didn't do it right. You added a white piece and then you added an orange piece. That's not correct.
That's okay.
Oh.
No wrong answers. So here. So look at this. If we all use the same pieces, remember
Oh.
6 different ways.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow. Wow.
I didn't use my other red.
This is there's so
Oh,
many
and
ways to-
I didn't use my I used my red in the wrong spot altogether.
Oh, no worries. But here's
I like the red as feet at the bottom.
but I do, when I looked at all your ducks, they all look like ducks, no matter what color you were using. So I didn't give you any building instructions. I didn't give you any design criteria. But like I said, the 3 of you have this beautiful duck. So let's talk a little bit about that. So we use these 6 pieces. Remember what I said about 6 pieces, how many different ways you can combine them?
Mhm.
But what's interesting is, did you know you're using 24 different skills as you're building that duck? So we're going to talk a little bit about some of those skills. And the first skill I want to talk to you about is symbolic representation. So when you look at your duck, you probably found that piece with the eye on it, and that would be the face of your duck. That's symbolic representation. Or if you had those red pieces, they could have been the bill, the feet, or the wings of the duck. It's just those, that's your idea of what your duck should look like. Another one would be spatial ability. So the ability to be able to visualize in your head what your duck's going to look like, and then you put it together, in 3 dimensions in 3D. So you've got that and that spatial abilities. And then finally, I mean, I always get this when I have a very large group. We're going to see this, Mariana, when we go to Monterey. But how many of you felt just a little bit stressed out? And you mentioned this already when I said, hey, you got 30 seconds to build a duck, right?
Mhm.
But so self-regulation. So you had a goal. You set yourself to accomplishing that goal and you made it happen, right? You didn't throw your bricks down and walk out of the room or turn off the Zoom and say, I'm done. You made it happen. So that's self-regulation. So those are just some of the skills that you're using. And then as you can see, there's a bunch more on here with relation to, how play is all about learning, or learning is all about play. So then we have what we would do if we had a big group and if we were in person. What I would do is, this is you, and these are your 6 bricks from your duck, right? But what I would have you do is find a partner and their 6 bricks. And what I would have the 2 of you do if we were together is I'd have you combine those bricks so that you have 12 all together, and then have you build a super duck together so that you would build a big duck together. So what would happen is I would put the timer on for 60 minutes. Or 60 minutes, 60 seconds. Holy moly, that's a long time to build a duck. That better be 60 minutes. But then this is what should happen, right? This is an example of a super duck. I've seen some great builds since I started doing this exercise. But now that you're bringing 2 people together, you've brought even more skills to the table. So some of those skills would include, communication. You're talking to each other, collaboration. You're working together to build the super duck. You're listening to each other. You're speaking and looking at body language. You may have this like, oh, I don't want to do that. But then you know what? You would turn around, and another skill is you start to negotiate. Well, gee whiz, maybe we should do it this way. So this is kind of a great little exercise to see how, you can work together and building up those skills with relation to teamwork. So this was actually, there was a study done by the San Diego Workforce Partnership here in San Diego County, and they put together a list of essential skills. And these skills are chosen based on labor market needs and an analysis of online job postings. But so while your employers are always, technical skills are super important, with what you do at work, the essential skills are how you do it. So let's talk a little bit about those essential skills and what these employers will value. So the first skill is emotional intelligence. So that's considering the feelings and perspective of others to infuse empathy and thoughtfulness in all your interactions. The second one is communication. We talked about that with, when we built that duck together, right? So you're exchanging information, you're exchanging feelings and meaning in person. And you might even do that digitally through actions. I can't even talk today. So, but not only through actions, through words, through body language, and in listening, and in even writing to achieve understanding among people. The next one here is creative and critical thinking. So you're using your imagination and problem solving to apply knowledge to adjust challenges. See what we have here. The next one is collaboration. So you're working together and you're using those productive relationships and you're working with somebody else towards a common goal. So that's all collaboration. And then of course, dependability, saying that you're gonna, showing up to work on time, that's super important. If you say you're gonna be there, you're gonna be there. Or if you're given a project and you give a timeline, then you complete that project within that timeline. It's all about dependability. So, but taking the initiative and working independently to move things forward. And then finally is resourcefulness. So as you think outside of the box, right, you're relentlessly seeking solutions and opportunities. So, understanding your own strengths and weaknesses and knowing when to ask for help or lean on another person's expertise. So this is all about resourcefulness. So these are 6 of those essential skills that your employers are looking for today. And a lot of that we do through these exercises using Lego bricks. So here's another activity that we do. And so we did this, if you remember this, what I shared with you with a super duck, but instead of combining the 12 bricks together, I take away this plus sign and now we're back to our 6 bricks between each other. And what I would do is I would have everybody do a back-to-back exercise. And this back-to-back exercise, the objectives behind it are to improve communication, verbal and listening skills. So what you would do is you would have person A, they would make a model using maybe 3 bricks or 6 bricks, depending on the age of the children. And they'd sit back to back and the second child would have the exact same bricks, or adult, doesn't matter. And person A would describe to person B what to build. And person B can't ask any questions, they just build. And then when they're done giving direction and person B is done building, you do the reveal and we see how well those directions were given. So it's actually a fantastic exercise. The first time I did it, I thought I gave some very, very clear instructions, and I was very surprised to see what my partner had built. So, but it makes you really think about how do you give instruction? How do you communicate? So there's many, many different ways of doing this particular activity. So you can, the additional versions of this back to back is you can do a face-to-face where students are facing each other, but they're using a folder or a book to hide their build, right? The other way of doing this is a multi-person back-to-back. And so one person will build and give directions to a larger group. So you could have a student at the front of the classroom turned around and telling the rest of the classroom how to build what they built, as long as everybody has those same 6 bricks. Another way of doing this is actually having them write the instructions down. So it's a writing assignment. And so when they write that down, see how the students, how they interpret that and see what they build as well. So great exercise. So, so I wanted to give you a little bit of background about who we are and a little bit about Lego Education. And we've been around for more than 40 years. We actually just celebrated our 40th birthday in 2020, right before the pandemic. They flew us all out to Denmark and we had a big birthday celebration. This was in
Wow.
February. Yeah, right. So we had cake and we had a party and it was great. And then the pandemic happened. So, but we're now, I think we're in year 42. So, but our solutions inspire interest in science, technology, engineering, and math. And we're based on that Lego system for playful learning, and we combine that with curriculum relevant material and digital resources. So if you go to our website, All of our stuff is available for free for you to take advantage of. There's a lot of really great resources on the website. And as you probably know, we're part of the bigger Lego group. So, and learning has always been at the core of the company's values. So the Lego group, there's several different offshoots, and, you know, Lego Education is one, and, you know, there's the Lego retail stores and Lego Land and all that stuff. But another organization I want to share with you is something called the Lego Foundation. And the Lego Foundation is solely exists because 25% of every dollar that you spend with the Lego group goes to the Lego Foundation. And they use that money to, you know, support children worldwide. It's amazing what they've done. They've donated millions of dollars, you know, especially now more than ever for COVID relief, for supporting students' social emotional learning, all sorts of different things. They actually even, I have it right here. You need to start traveling with these. If you can see this on my face here. These are called Braille bricks. So instead of the traditional 8 studs on the bricks, they're actually, the studs look like Braille language on here. Can you guys see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so these
Yes.
are these were done by the Lego Foundation. They funded this, but if you have blind students, you can go ahead and apply to get these for free for your students that are, you know, cannot see. So we have those Braille bricks, and they can actually take these off and do different sentences and those types of things. So, but finally, you know, our aim is to enable every student to succeed in education and be prepared for future life challenges. And so that's a little bit about the Lego Education. We do have something called, now we call it the Lego Learning System, and it's designed as a series of components that work seamlessly together that deliver engaging hands-on learning experiences for students of all ages. And so it combines that standards aligned curriculum that I shared with you that we have available online. It also has the traditional stackable Lego bricks that you can see here. We also have simple coding progression. So some of our sets actually, you can actually do physical computing where you actually will program whatever you build to do something. We also have that intelligent hardware to deliver STEAM learning. And so that intelligent hardware being, you know, smart hubs and motors and sensors that you would go ahead and use for physical computing. And of course, all of this is supported by professional development resources for teachers. And we actually have online, we have completely free online self-paced training that you can take advantage of as well. In addition to, we also offer in-person training that unfortunately is not free, but it's available. So, so this is kind of a better idea of what the integrated system of versatile components looks like with the Lego Learning System, where we have the primary folks down here for our elementary students, and in secondary for middle and high school. We actually start off with block coding. We get into Word blocks, and then finally they actually get into text-based Python coding. So it's crazy, and it's an awesome thing to see that progression where you can see we got your traditional Lego bricks and you move into Technic and more of the robotic stuff up here, smaller HUDs and sensors into your bigger, more advanced HUDs and sensors. To just give you an idea of what that looks like. This is our Lego Learning System. So we have our 2 top products up here, our physical computing products where you get into coding, the Lego Education Spike Essential, which is for your younger students, and then the Spike Prime for your older students. But you can tie that into these 2 bottom products here. We have the BrickQ Motion Essential and BrickQ Motion Prime. Both of these products do not require any technology at all. Both are all based on the science of sport. So this is all about science, but the theme behind it is the science of sports. So there's a lot of sports type related activities in here that you're going to build upon. So really, really great sets. If you're interested in seeing these, I'm happy to come out and share them with you. I think Mariano, I actually brought these out for you to see, didn't I? Okay, yeah, they're great sets. So let's talk about another activity that we normally do. And this is something, we call it a reflection activity. And so with this, and do we have time to do a quick reflection activity? Okay, so we all have our loose bricks there, and we have our little duck there. So what I want you to do is I'm gonna give you about 30 seconds, 45 seconds to build a little habitat for your duck. So if you wanna build the habitat for your duck, why don't we go ahead and start doing that now? Oh, any second hands? I need a timer on this exercise.
I think Mariano gave me a smaller pack. I don't have all the fancy stuff.
Oh no, this is a different.
Oh, okay.
I will graduate you guys up to this pack eventually. So
Okay.
yeah,
I got the small pack too, Rosemary.
All right.
Me too. I got it. That's why we just did the simple habitat. You're not using all the mini figures and stuff.
Okay. Okay.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm gonna probably Mariano, even with Sisk, we're just gonna do just a 6 straight bricks for the ducks. That's all they'll have. So we'll see. How you guys doing there?
Not so great.
A little bit more time.
Gotta be perfect, huh?
And I need a child's brain because mine's overthinking it. Oh my goodness.
You guys can see my whole screen, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's weird because I'm seeing something different on my monitor.
Don't,
here.
Rosemary,
Mhm.
none of us have all of those pieces that she has on the screen, Rosemary.
Oh, yeah. That's what she just said. That. Yeah.
Those are just those pieces. Although, I mean, technically I do have all those pieces. You see the office behind me. It's crazy.
You have
I can-
another bag like that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we do.
Oh, is that what you're gonna bring?
Mariano's like, I want that bag.
I want that bag.
I gotta order some more stuff. I'm running low on that particular bag. Actually, you know what? I gotta write that on my list of things to do.
Yeah.
We actually sell this bag, this particular one. They're like $10 each. We have a lot of our school districts using this particular set for summer school activities. It's crazy. So there's a lot of different activities tied to science, to math, to English language arts, all
And
sorts
again,
of.
maybe that's what you could say as well, Paulette, too,
Mhm.
for a conference, because they're gonna need ideas for that.
Yeah. No, there's a ton. Yeah, there's so many different ways of going about this. So I've given you lots of time to build a habitat.
Yes, I already built it, so everybody should be finished.
So now what we want you to do is, we call this turn and talk, right? So turn to your partners, share with what you made. And I see Mariano's very nice. You want to talk about yours first?
Sure. So what I started was just thinking about where a duck lives and looking at the color of the pieces that I have. So obviously I had some green and some blue, and then the orange. And so those are the pieces that I put as my foundation to maybe a lake, maybe some shrubs, and then both live, and then some of them that might be dead. And then just some extra pieces too for leverage as well for the duck. So like a swamp area too for some of the black pieces as well for looking like tar. So that's what I saw where my duck would create a habitat for.
You know, it's interesting, Mariano, because you talked about dead plants and live plants and things like that. And, it's true because sometimes, plants die after a certain amount of time, right? And I was thinking, well, they're close to the water. They should never be dead, but it happens. But then as I was also thinking, because I do wildlife photography on the side, I have never seen a yellow duck. So how did it get yellow? I don't get it. So
The ducklings when they're born,
that's right, they're yellow. So
then
we
they
should call
change.
the
Yeah.
duck, we should call them ducklings. You're
Ducklings.
Kill the duckling. All right, Marianne or
Here's mine.
Mary, do you want to share?
So here's
Actually-
mine. Oh, go ahead.
No, go. You, Hyder. Go, I want you to go first. Go.
This is like our old staff meetings.
I know it.
Well, so the blue is the water. I don't know if you could see. And then
Yeah.
the green is the shrubs or whatever, the land area. And then the orange is the goldfish it's about to eat.
Oh,
Oh, wow, that's a good one. That's a real good one.
no. I love how people think.
That's a real good one.
All right, Marianne, let's see what you got.
Basically, the gray and the black is basically where they'll waddle around and walk around until they get to the grassy area. And then they can go up to a second level of grass, and then they have little water puddles for them to play in. And then I tried to make sure this was like a ramp that they can get up to the green. But that didn't
Oh,
work.
wow. See,
Things that can fly a little bit, right?
Oh.
That's so fun. Well, nice job, everybody. I didn't make one. I just watched all you guys make one and talk to you. But that's just another example of what you can do with your students. So you can totally do all sorts of different prompts. You don't have to make a duck. You don't have to make a habitat. You could say, hey, what did you do on your summer vacation? Build that out with your bricks, right? Or, what's something you did over the weekend? Or, what's your favorite food? There's so many different prompts you could do. And it's just a great, great activity. In fact, just one more I'm going to throw out there. Have you guys heard of Genius Hour by chance?
Mm-mm.
No?
No.
So, all right. So Genius Hour started off with this fantastic idea. It's born through Google, and Google had something called the 20% project. And so the 20% project was with those Google employees that they spent 20% of their time working on something they were truly passionate about. In fact, I used to work for a guy that had a 20% project at Google that broke away and actually started his own company as a result of that. So, examples of 20% projects would be Guru. I think Gmail was a 20% project. So all of these things came out and became super successful as a result of it. So what they did is they took that idea that Google did and they brought it into the classroom, and they said, you know what, we're going to give you an hour, a week or a day to spend learning about something you're truly passionate about. And so a part of that process is you have to research, you give them a little bit of structure. Okay, let's maybe let's create an invention, or maybe something that would make my life better. So you have to research the product, then you would actually build the product, and then you would share that with the rest of the class. So, but this is something you would spend an hour working on something that you're truly passionate about. So again, some sort of structure around it, but it's a great little project that you can do. So all of that said, I just like to share this slide because, everything is all about learning, but you have to be bold while you're learning. And while you're being bold, you think about innovation. You're going to innovate as you share out with your students. You advocate for what your needs are to help support your students. And you collaborate. You're working together, as we talked a little bit about that already. And of course, throughout this entire process, we're going to learn. So this is my contact information, and that's how to get in touch with me. And I think that is the end of my presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Rosemary and Mariano to continue the conversation, unless you have any questions or anybody has any questions.
That was fun.
That was fun.
Thank you. And thank you, Paulette, for that great introduction. And again, this is something that, we could incorporate it into just a small percentage of our students, right? A really targeted audience that you have, and especially maybe our EL population, our special ed population too, and then grow it out, right? Maybe just a few grade levels or grade span that we want to introduce this to, and then we could go out into the middle school, into the high school, and or vice versa. So there's great programs out there already set up for some of you, and some of the school districts have already adopted all these Lego educational pieces that, it's system-wide throughout the whole entire district. So reach out to either myself and or Paulette, and we could go ahead and point out some of those districts so that you could go ahead and contact them, let them know this is something that we want to do. How can we provide or get that additional help? So Paulette throughout, San Diego, all of California, and possibly even out of state too. She has so many different examples. So please reach out to us, because again, it's just helping our students, right? Being able to engage them in a different way, right? Rethinking, not just in the same way that we always used to be in terms of the teacher being in the front, but really having those tangible pieces for them to engage in their learning too. So thank you very much again for that, Paulette. And now we're going to continue on and seeing how like everything that Paulette has done here through Lego Education, how it ties in back again to NGSS, our next generation science standards, specifically in terms of the CAS test, the California Science Test, and also our ELPAC, and then our task types that they have to go through in terms of speaking, listening, writing, and reading. So with that, let's see if I could put this back up again so we could see that. Let me see if I could share. And I'll move this one over again. I apologize. I'm not at work. So
Yes, I think I'm the only one left in the building.
I know I did ask that again, Rose.
That is not uncommon for you, Hyder. That is not uncommon at all.
This is her second time, and I wasn't very pleased last time either, her being by herself.
The main
Right.
building that you in, Mariano? Is that the office? I don't even know where you are. Where you based?
Right. So Paulette, you did join us in our district office. So she's on the other side of our superintendent's office. So as we walked up the stairs, we went to the right to my office. If you walk to the left, that's Rosemary's office. So yeah, she's upstairs all by herself right now.
Yep.
Not
It's a,
Looking around like,
we had our management meeting right before this, and I think everyone kind of cleared out after that. Oh, we're still recording, aren't we?
Yes. It's okay. We could go to.
Okay.
So, Rosemary,
ahead.
next slide. Do you want to?
Sure, I can go with this one. So science, being the great equalizer, it's just a great way to engage students, whether they're coming from different countries. The ability of a student or a future adult to think scientifically is critical in this global society, provides opportunity for many underrepresented groups. You see the push with STEAM and so forth. Students from all backgrounds benefit by engaging in quality science education that requires scientific thought and engagement through scientific and engineering practices, or what has been historically known as inquiry. And it just challenges students. The more they experiment, the more that they're questioned, or they start talking with each other, they start reflecting. Since I have Dr. Bowman here, we've done a lot of science fairs at our schools, getting our students, we knew the value of it. And every year, and we worked several years together, we got our students from the West Side to the science fair. We made sure every single classroom had what they needed to make sure that, so we understand the value. So we're coming from that background, knowing that this is important for our students and the excitement that it creates. And they're learning, and sometimes they don't, realize that they're learning when they're doing things, projects with inquiry.
And then that literacy piece as well is so important. And we always think or associate, right, that ELA obviously is extremely important, but that's the only way for students to engage in literacy and or math, right? This is the only way that they could engage in that. But in terms of science being the great equalizer, meaning like if you do teach science, especially at the elementary level, you are teaching English language arts, you are teaching mathematics. So we want them to be scientific literate, but then yet with that literacy comes everything else and all encompassing. So technically we could just be teaching science and we could cover all three phases, plus history as well too. So that's what we want to emphasize as well.
And then now we're going to think about some of the things that Paulette showed in her activity with the Legos, and a lot of these things that could be done to support overcoming those language barriers. When she asked you, what is a duck? Or, do you have a background of what is a duck? And so duck may not translate, and so her asking that question is to make sure that every student understands what a duck is. And if they said no, then we can show a picture, right? And like she said, all ducks aren't yellow, so they may not be looking for those pieces. So, and say a duckling, all right? And then, so explaining those, so labeled cards with pictures to represent concept as a language support. Jigsaw as well. I'm not going to read all of it for you, but we did the turn and talk with her activity. She gave us all a chance to explain our pieces, so giving that speaking domain to us. Right. And then sentence frames. We can also provide sentence frames as she led us through that activity. She could have had sentence frames, or she may have given to us. I may not even noticed, and I was filling in what she asked us to do. She gave us that vocabulary to use.
And again, that's very important to engage our students in that language incentive presentation. It's very intensive. NGSS has so many vocabulary words, right? But then also those other language representations and concepts that, again, might not be expressed, or we might think, well, what is a system? What is a color? And that is completely different, right? In terms of yellow, in terms of brown. And so how does that represent life? How does that not represent life? All of this discourse that you engage the students with in terms of language and language intensive practices by us speaking, right? Us doing that back-to-back activity is we're expressing language, and that's how we're expressing our literacy and our understanding of what those words mean to us. So that's what we want our EL students to have, not just the ability for them to do the activity, but to explain that activity too. So that's very important as well as we go through this.
Okay. So Mariana, you were going to take over the.
And then this one, again, just supporting our NGSS and how it's setting really high expectations, right? And the way that both the ELPAC and NGSS is that it's highlighted in terms of the NGSS pieces. It has a reading domain, it has a listening domain, and then it doesn't have the speaking, but it does have a writing, right? So there's high expectations for that test. But then if we were to teach the ELPAC, we're also incorporating NGSS strategies, right, within that. So this is science for all students, ELA language for all students, and they have so many different strategies that we can incorporate in terms of literacy, in terms of language support, and like Rosemary, we were saying it in terms of defining who are the teachers that are actually going to be supporting this, right? And then also our home language support and that discourse throughout. So all of this is incorporating culture, it's incorporating these connections. And that's what Paulette also mentioned with her. It's like this collaboration piece. If we put all of these pieces together, that's again helping more and more of our students. And again, those strategies that Paulette just went through. So definitely that's something that we could support.
Okay. And this one, I'll put the link in the chat for you. It comes from a document that was created by CDE and I believe Wested. Instead of copying it, I have definitely clicked. Okay. And it is math and science, and it has great resources and how they're correlated, how they're working in tandem, the standards, ELD standards with the science standards, and then also the math standards. So if you go, it's in our folder. All right, okay, so the chart element, I thought it's almost, I don't know how many pages, but it's a huge document focusing on both math and science. So if you go up to page 190, this is where this chart is right here. It talks about what the ELD standards are, because when we're talking about integrating, you know, you're focusing with both standards. And you're using the ELD standards, a full text of each ELD standards for each grade and for each of the 3 proficiency levels. And so how to use it, consider how the standard applies to science teaching and learning in all classrooms with EL students. What it's not is listed on this right here. Let me move our faces out of the way. Okay, so complete, it's not to complete information on the organization structure or use of the ELD standards, right? And then the application of ELD standards to science, additional information. So we're focusing on the language objectives, but using the content standards, right? So you are able to create a language objective. You're not rewriting the science standard.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And in terms of science, it's a three-dimensional approach, right? NGSS. And so if anybody could decipher that NGSS matrix, they're outstanding and they should be a curriculum leader at their district, right? That three-dimensional approach has the disciplinary core ideas, the DCIs, all encompassing by the performance expectations too, and then the cross-cutting concepts all come in there. And then now you have to separate that apart into the SEPs, the science and engineering practices. Where do all of these fit in, right? Like which ones are the standards? It gets so confusing, and that's what this is saying. Where do they align? Well, they align in terms of the performance expectations aligned with the California ELD standards. So we break them out into smaller chunks, and then that's what we just are showing you right now. In terms of modeling, modeling is either a physical model that we saw here in terms of our ducks, or a conceptual model that we could also draw. The students could draw out and do the different pieces. Again, that's part of the SEPs, the science and engineering practices that they have. And then they go ahead and demonstrate that to you, right? So those skills described in the ELD standards, they're also described within the NGSS standards in terms of the performance expectations. Within the middle school, there's three different ones, right? So you have three different grade levels that have three different standards. And if you are integrated, they're all together put. So you have the physical science, life science, and the earth and space science too, all together into each one of the three components. So you have to know exactly which is the model that you are using, or if you're using designated. Are you using only like earth science the first year, then you go into life science, and then you go into physical science? So those are the two different types of model approaches that you could teach at the middle school, again, for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So each one of the school districts has a choice of getting or knowing which standards it applies to. And it's all within NGSS, so it's all okay. But you have to know that so that, again, you can integrate those SEPs and into those particular grade levels that you are also bringing in from your ELD standards. So that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. But again, know what you are teaching out of your middle school, and then you're able to backtrack to the ELD standards.
And just in case, that let's make sure that you have an idea when we're talking about if we're using part 1 or part 2 standards. So usually with our science teachers, we want to make sure that they're focusing on part 1, right? The collaborative, interpretive, and productive of the part 1 of the ELD standards. And most of our designated ELD teachers will be using part 2 because they'll be using the language and supporting that content. So we are, most of the time when we're talking to our science teachers, we want them to focus on part 1. And I've put the ELD standards are in your folder as well. Mariana, did we put the link in the chat yet, or
Yes.
for the folder? Okay. So Dr. Bowman, you have access to that. So you have, I'm sure you already have this, but.
No, I got it
Yeah.
from you.
Okay. Oh. So, if you go back, was it one more, Mariana? There we go. So how does this all relate to the ELPAC? All right. So the ELPAC, the students that are English learners take the ELPAC to be reclassified. And so I'm sorry, because Dr. Bowman is here with us because we used to handle CELT testing at our site. So we were, and back then, and, we made sure that, everything, so we had to go through all the rubrics and, oh, I'm forgetting all the words now that we had to do with the CELT testing, and, making sure that the teachers were prepared to give the assessment, but we gave the assessment and the teachers did not. So a lot of times they didn't know what to prepare their students for. So we're talking about backwards mapping. What are the students expected to do on this assessment? We don't want to teach to the test, but we want to make sure that the students understand what is in the test and the teachers understand so that they can plan and design their lesson plans so that they are supporting our English learners through integrating some of the things that we're about to show you right now. So if you go to the next slide. So these are your domain sheets. They're also in your drive. the 4 domain sheets, the reading domain, writing, listening, and speaking. So in each of these domain sheets for the Summative ELPAC, you have your task types and the descriptions with each task type. So Dr. Bowman, you won't be focusing on the read along word with scaffolding because that's only for kindergarten. So I'm going to look for the task types that are going to pertain to my students. So I'm going to look at read a short informational passage, right? They're going to be expected to do that. And so for our classroom teachers, what does that look like? Well, the student reads a short informational text and answers multiple choice questions related to the text. Is that something that they normally do in a science class? Right, if I just read that task type. And then read a student essay. So the student reads an informational essay presented as if it's written by a peer and answers a set of multiple choice questions related to the essay. Is that something we can do in our science class, right? And then if I look at the writing domain, I look for my grade level that I'm teaching and the task type that my student will be expected to pass, right, with the rubric score. And in the practice test, they also have the rubric, so you can see. Listening domain, same thing. Where are my students? What are they going to be assessed in? And how can I support my students in my classroom as I design my lesson plans? So planning is important test at this, and then also communicating with the designated ELD teacher. So that communication between the science teacher and the designated ELD teacher has to happen too. So we, want to make sure that our principals understand that they need to give them some time during some type of PLC that's happening at the school or PD, that there's that communications between the ELD teacher and the science teacher or the math teacher, so that they can support their content teachers with what they're doing and using those content standards for what they're being taught. They can help each other, right? And right, and on the next slide.
Can I just say right here?
Yeah.
So this really helps support to what Paulette was talking about, right? In terms of both the listening and the speaking domain. And then something that she did mention too was that you could have them write about their duck, right? So if you ask them, write like what the color is. So instead of just explaining it verbally, like give me a whole sentence structure for it, right? And then you could actually have them read maybe a passage, because we're talking about that right now, right? What color are ducks? Are they yellow? So then you have them read a passage about it. Then they have to write about it, about the environment of where they live. And then they have to share that. So they both are writing, they're reading from a passage, they're writing about it, and then they go ahead and start speaking about that to their partner. And then obviously their partner is listening. All those are the skills that they're going to be assessed with this ELPAC. And then that ties in directly again with NGSS, because they have to read a passage. They have to write about that passage, and then they also have to listen to some of that information in there. Again, the only domain that is not assessed in the CAS is the speaking domain either. But again, it's they could have all those skills that are very, very essential for them. So that's what I wanted to bring about.
Oh no, you can go back one more time, Mariana. Stay on the domain sheet for a minute.
Okay.
So that task type that Mariana was just talking about, it would be write about an experience, right? The student is provided with a common topic, like the duck, or the environment that you can create for the duck, such as a memorable classroom activity or about the Lego experience itself, or an event that's prompted to write about the topic. So writing about an experience. So that's the task type right there that they would be addressing, right? And so if a teacher does this well, and you can look at the practice test that we're going to show you right now, to be able to say, okay, you know what, my student, they're at a level 3 now, they need to get to a 4. I made sure that I've addressed that task type and that task type in this lesson, and some of the questioning or the directions that we'll be showing you shortly too as well. Is it the next? All right. So the listening domain, so this is from the practice test, grades 6 through 8. Listening to an oral presentation, just to give you a sample of what's in the practice test, because ELPAC has a lot of science text and science vocabulary in the test. So this one is about the oxidation of an apple. It's a oral presentation here in the questions. So in this task type, students listen to a recording of an oral presentation on an academic topic. Students then answer 4 questions about the information. During an actual administration of this task type, students may take notes in their test book. So one of the things as a classroom teacher, do my students know how to take notes? Right? Because I've administered the assessment where they will not, it's like, you're welcome to take notes. Students don't know what to do. If you are an AVID school, Dr. Bowman, I don't know if you're an AVID school, but they're taught to take notes, right? Cornell notes, whichever notes that they're so teachers being aware that students can take notes and refer back to them for the answer. That's an important skill right there, just to teach them that. Then that's half the battle for the students taking this assessment. Again, the narrative says, listen to a teacher talking to students about apples. Listen carefully. You will hear the information only once. Do most students pay attention to that? That they're only going to, they're thinking, my teacher tells me this all the time, right? And they'll repeat and repeat until I get it. And on the assessment, they're not going to repeat this. You hear the directions, you will hear the information only once. After listening, you will answer some questions. As you listen, you may use blank areas in your test booklet to take notes. So again, just teachers being able to make sure that they communicate these kinds of directions that for the test that they're going to take is half the battle right there. Because if they understand what they're going to do, and then as a science teacher, if I know that this kind of vocabulary is in there, the words reaction, enzyme, inner tissue, all of those things are within the ELPAC, then they're able to support them as well. Right? And then the questions.
Dr. Bowman, did you have a comment? Can you tell us a little bit more about your ELPAC boot camp that you did?
Yes, I'm the ELF for our middle school. And so I designed the ELPAC, we call it the ELPAC boot camp, in which we actually took the students through the 4 domains. Oh, nice. And so they can be familiar, if anything, and we talked about always play the audio, just remember in the listening part, you're only going to hear it once. Here's a piece of paper, practice taking the notes, or listen intently. And then how do you take notes? You can jot down a key word, you can sketch an understanding of what.
Uh-oh.
I know she did mention that she was
having the internet, yeah.
To our admins that we need to start this, in September and not the month before,
yes.
So that the kids will have plenty of opportunities to get some of these tips and strategies that they will not get in their classrooms, because the teachers are very, they're closely focused on their own content area, and they just, need to put a little bit more emphasis on the fact that this is not just ELPAC. This is across the, the content, these strategies, and having good listening skills.
Oh, yes.
Definitely. And this is something maybe that you want to invite your integrated teachers, right? Because it's not just designated that's important, especially in the secondary. Invite your science teachers. Look, can you do this? Can you show a video and ask them to take notes? We do that all the time, right? As middle school, high schools, as teachers, it's like, take notes on it. You're actually practicing what you're doing, and you don't necessarily have to, or they don't necessarily have to say, well, this is only going to refer to our ELPAC students. No, it's great for everybody, right? In terms of habit, note taking that they have to do. So all of you are going to be engaging in this practice too. So that's very important, because again, it practices them in terms of vocabulary for science, but then yet they're learning how to take notes, and then they could refer to them. Maybe that's what we ask them. Look, you're going to have 4 questions. You could use your notes on those 4 questions, right? And that's what you could use for that. So that's a great model to follow. So thank you for having that boot camp too.
And what we also did was we took our parents through the process. We wanted them to see it so that they can encourage their children to follow the tips and strategies that we were
That is
providing.
awesome. I want to be invited to the next one, Dr. Bowman.
Oh, that'll be next year.
Hey.
In fact, you guys might be invited to do this presentation.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, we'll definitely come out to you.
Mm-hmm. All right, count on it.
Yeah. All right. And so I just want to give you what else is in the assessment book, the writing overview, right? Your ELA teachers, your science, social studies teachers, these are all teachers that can integrate these practices. And since we're specifically talking about science, just taking a look at the goal of the writing domain and what our students are expected, because even just reading this piece and not just even looking at the test will help our students.
Yeah, sorry, I clicked on the,
I'm looking, I was like, where did he go?
let me stop sharing, see if I could do that. But I clicked, that's the drive that she keeps on mentioning,
Mhm.
Dr. Bowman too. So she has all of the information. Rosemary is very good with doing that. And so if you have any questions, just click on that link like I did, but maybe not during the presentation. I apologize for that. And so you could go ahead and see that too. So let me get it back because I went away. Sorry about that.
Oh no, having Dr. Bowman here, this is things we did with SILT. Yeah, and so when we talk about backwards mapping, even with our common assessments, our benchmarks, and those are things that it's not a secret. It shouldn't be a surprise to our students. When I was stressed interim assessments, to make sure that that starts early on, not the month before testing. And so when I became an administrator, guess in our first teacher meeting in August, every grade level received their practice test for ELPAC, because every single teacher had an English learner in their class. So I said, incorporate this. Like I said, it's good teaching, but it's necessary for our English learners. Our EOs will benefit from it, from the academic language, all of that, but it's necessary. And so that was discussed then, and also having an assembly with our students. So I called grade level by grade level. I had our district ELF, in a sense. They weren't called an ELF, they were called something else in Coachella, but they came and talked to the students and the parents actually during my ELAC meeting of how they became classified as an English learner. Right? Do they understand that that home language survey is why they have been identified as an English learner? That they took an initial assessment that some of our students took, the initial ELPAC, some of them don't even remember that they took that, and then that they were given a level and what level they are. And so just for them to understand that, and then making sure that they understood that speaking another language is an asset. It is not a deficit. And so giving them that idea, and then also with my ELAC parents, just because some of them said, oh, Miss Hyder, I don't let them speak Spanish. I make sure I talk to them in English. And I said, why? I said, my boys, even to this day, are upset with me for not talking to them more in my language so that they would, can communicate with, their grandparents speak both English and Malayalam. But again, now that they're adults in college, they're like, why didn't you teach us more? I was like, well, I was running around Rio Vista Elementary School and during those years. So 10 of those years were spent in Miss Bowman will know, our room F6. So again, so for our teachers and our parents and our students, everyone has to be on board with this. They have to have a good understanding, and that them having that status of English learner is not a life sentence. Unlike the CST where they have to take that test to, show proficiency and everything. Once they show proficiency in this, they pass with a 4, they can be reclassified and take those electives. So when 7th graders or 6th graders come in, that should be the first meeting with them, like, pass this ELPAC so you can take that elective, right? Okay, and our next slide, I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, and that's so critical in terms of reclassifying. I was the administrator at the high school level, and seeing the inequities, right, that exist, and just having that opportunity that they miss, being part of band, being part of art classes, because they have to do that double enrollment class because they couldn't reclassify back at the middle school. It's detrimental. And going back into the classrooms again, because I used to go into the designated class and I worked very closely with our ELD teachers, and seeing those students, right? They wanted to be out there with the rest of the school population and they couldn't. And then that's the other part in terms of the metrics that we use for college admissions, right? They're not A through G compliant because they haven't taken that art. They haven't taken that, or that performing art, right? Because they're still in this classroom. So that's a disservice too. So definitely that middle school should probably be, the last big emphasis for them to reclassify, and so that they shouldn't go into high school and not have the opportunity to take those selectives. So definitely, this is a very critical stage for them to do that. And then this one, all I put in there is, again, what we talked a little bit about, this three-dimensional analysis of NGSS. And so having those science and engineering practices, and that's the SEP number 2, developing and using the models of what we showed here as well. And just like what we've been saying, is that it doesn't only apply to EL students, but it applies to all students. Who doesn't want to talk about their duck production, right, that they made? Who doesn't want to engage with Legos? Who doesn't want to engage with all these great activities, right? Your regular students, quote unquote, your EL students, your EOs. So we want to make sure that everybody participates. And so this provides that bridge, right? So these external factors of Legos is it doesn't discriminate. Okay, well, only certain students should or be able to apply this. It goes to everybody. So that's one of them. And then obviously the disciplinary core ideas of what I was talking about, either physical science, life science, or earth and space science that we have. But then the other part that we always forget about is also that engineering component. And that's what LEGO really emphasized. And I know that, it was a short presentation by Paulette, but there's so much technology and applications of that science with LEGO. So we always just see these pieces as, okay, well, just putting those Lego pieces together. No, but they could interact and they could actually code, and you could take them to that engineering design even further through Lego Education too. And obviously there's so many other platforms, but this Lego Education really, Spike Essentials really emphasizes that. So that's and again, it's right here in the standards as you're seeing it. So it's not something, oh, well, no, that's additional, or no, this is part of the curriculum that you're supposed to be designing and assigning our students to, right? So definitely within that, and then seeing all the patterns. We're talking about the environmental patterns, right? Live and non-life forms, scales, proportionalities. We were talking about the ramp, right? That energy system. You designed a first-class lever, Dr. Bowman, of creating a ramp so that that could facilitate a longer leverage in order for them to have less force that goes up to that environment that you just created. So see all those tiny pieces that you have, you could always come back and you could tell them, this is what you're doing in science. Everything's related within that. So definitely that's something that all students could understand, and they did it, right? They actually engaged in that activity. And so now you're just illuminating them with the science standards and what they're learning that is completely applicable to their learning and aspirations. And then again, this was just more specific in terms of the science and engineering practice that we're using, that developing and using models. And then we could begin in earliest grades too. They use either, again, a physical model, a concrete picture models, or these physical scale models to represent an abstract information. So now we could actually start calculating. So looking at your angle of that ramp, if we want to go that way, what is the amount of force that you're going to be required in order to overcome that force, that gravitational force coming down. Well, I don't know how to do that. Okay, let's look at it, because look, you designed it, right? It's something that you diagrammed. You particularly put all those forces in there. And then labeling, right? That's what Paulette just asked us to do. So what is the green piece again? What is the blue piece that you had? Like, what are the red pieces? Why is it yellow? Like, you don't see a duck that it's yellow. You did label it yellow, but is that in a certain time frame too? So now you start asking even more questions to the students. The students start to diagram all that information, and that is literacy. That is scientific inquiry. That is the knowledge that they're going to be applying to, and that's bringing all of these components of reading, of writing, of speaking, and of listening all together in science and ELD. And then this one is just our online format. So if you want them to practice with some of the CASP tests, if they go into the casp.org, practice and training, and the link is up there. I won't click on it because then I'll go out of it, but it has a different online testings for them. So it is broken down by 5th grade. And you know that in the 8th grade for middle school, that's when the middle school students are tested for the CASP. So it's only one time in the 5th grade, one time in the 8th grade, and then one time in high school. And depending on the high school, it could either be the 10th, the 11th, or the 12th year that they have. And then these were just some examples, again, of modeling, how you model a certain atom or a certain molecule together, and then you combine it, and this is how they're being assessed, right? So if you do work with these models, it's like putting them together, breaking them apart, reconfiguring those models. And yes, this this model of Lego duck is a model for them to see, oh, so you could break things apart, you could restructure it, you could put it again together to create a different model of it. So this is their this is an actual assessment question that was brought out from the cast. And I think this one, again, is just more of that grade 8. So we wanted to emphasize it has more specifics on the practice test scoring, the structure. So this is more for you, Dr. Bowman, if you want that assessment piece to be explained a little bit more on the CAS and how it's broken down. And then also for your special ed students, there's the CAA, the California Alternate Assessment, that is given, and how we can support those students. Definitely, this goes into a much longer detailed explanation of it, but I'm happy to provide that also for your district too. And then constructed responses and practices that we have. So definitely that's something that's in there. And then again, this is what I talked at the beginning. There's 2 types of approaches or different models. There's the integrated progression model for NGSS, and then there's a discipline specific model. So I don't know which one you have there at your middle school, but there's 2 different models. And again, you approach the standards differently because one, again, with the integrated, you teach all 3 of the subjects, life science, physical science, and earth science. You teach them all within each year, and then obviously progressing with each different standard, but all of them at the same time, or discipline specific. And then again, that being, and it could go in any order, but usually it's earth, life, and then physical models like that as well. So that's another way that you could present that information. And then this one, again, just more specifics of each one. So if you click on it, it tells you how to, if you haven't done so, it tells you how to do each one of those different grade levels, again, by 6, 7, and 8, and or by the discipline specific of earth, life, and physical science. And then this is just another way of bundling the standards in terms of NGSS. So there's this is a completely different, it goes by phenomena and topics. So there's like 4 different ways that you could have the middle school process be taken care of. All right.
Okay.
Rosemary.
All right. And so areas that where teachers can support science and language for English learners. These are a list of literacy strategies, right? I'm sure they look familiar to you. Anything that stands out, or anything that you're using, Dr. Bowman or Paulette, if anything stands out to you? You see language support strategies, the hands-on activities, which we've demonstrated today very well. But anything else stand out to you, Dr. Bowman?
The only thing I can, only comment I have to say on this is, as I've been a coach here for ELA as well as for the ELD, the language development, but I noticed the teachers, they circulate a lot around the literacy strategies, and they tend to not give much attention to the discourse strategies and the home language, but they do a lot with the language support and the literacy strategies. And I think that is because that's where the coaching emphasis is when they train us as coaches.
Mm.
I
yes.
totally agree with you on that one, Dr. Bowman. That classroom discussion, the student discourse section, as a teacher, we're so afraid, right, of chaos or structured chaos that we have, right? But because we don't have any control over that. If we're the ones speaking up in the front, then everybody's quiet. We have so much control. But then if you assign 30 groups with these duck projects in each one of them, no, I don't have any control over them because they're all talking and I don't know what they're talking about. But that classroom discussion, that student discourse of them, allowing them to speak, to think, to ration, and to put things on paper and to actually support each other and to have that dialogue, that's so important. And you are absolutely right. We don't do enough of that. And that if the coaching, if we were to bring the strategy again to them, this is how you would do it, right? This is how you would teach it in your classroom. And that's something obviously that you could support there, but I get also we could help support that as well.
And there are videos. So if there is a teacher that's struggling, a science teacher, on CDE's website, and I've been holding these watch parties for ELD on how to watch these support videos on, how the instruction is done for integrated and designated ELD. So if a teacher asks, are you familiar with them, Dr. Bowman? The ELD?
I haven't heard of those. That's why I'm writing it down.
Oh, I will give you the link. I actually, March 9th, I can't remember what grade level, but I will give you the link for that, and come to our watch party. And
Okay.
but it's a whole list of all the, and I'll make sure, I think it's middle school. That's, I'll look up the OMS and check right now. But it gives strategies as well on how to support, if they are doing hands-on activities. But what it's really good at is showing how to facilitate participation in classroom discussion. That,
that'll be good.
Yes, it shows the teachers letting go. One of them is a San Bernardino City Unified Curtis Middle School teacher. That's now, I think, a VP or someone. But again, structuring activities to reduce the language barrier for participation while maintaining rigor, using those sentence frames. And usually when, when I'm talking to my students as well, I'm talking about my Cal State, I'm teaching a class there of, when I say, did they dummy down the language? No, they're using full academic language. We have to be that model. And so here, there are some sentence frames, and there's the link there for you. We speak like scientists, giving them those sentence frames to continue, and taking a little by little scaffolding at those. But we speak like engineers, giving these sentence frames from having them posted so that they are using this language. And then here's the accountable talk. So again, you're talking about discourse, the agreement, disagreement, how to agree and disagree, right? And disagreement, making sure that it's respectful and that you're not starting something in our classroom, right? So that you're giving them those social skills as well, because this is language that they're going to be able to use in their business world when they start working, right? A clarification. Like, can you give me an example? This is also teaching them how to respond to the teacher. Confirmation, confusion. It's okay to be confused, because sometimes they think, it may be cultural, that they're not going to say, I don't understand.
A lot of times they're not comfortable. They're not comfortable with even stating that they don't understand because they feel they're going to be judged. And
also giving them that opportunity to talk to each other first, right? Getting them that strength and that self-esteem to be able to practice that language with maybe a partner first, then a group of 4, and then allowing that whole class discussion where they will respond. And but if you started with the whole class discussion first, making sure you have those whiteboards if you started with that, so that again, it's that, you know, this is also another resource for you. It's the teacher moves menu, accountable talk, right? Anything? Oh, Ms. Bowman, do you have the slides so you can go back to them and get the links and all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I copied this presentation.
So this here comes from this book. Okay. And Zweier's language used to describe the different steps. So again, science practices here on, and I had a picture of it first, but it just looked so sloppy, Mariano. I had to type the whole thing. So this is actually on page 97 of this book. But I made sure to give credit and everything on the bottom so I don't get punished for that, right? So, go ahead.
How can I get a copy of that book?
This book, I actually bought this. It's grades 5 through 12. Building academic language, and it's meeting common core standards across the disciplines. So I just pulled this one out because it had the science practices, but it also goes into math, social studies, a lot of language acquisition. There's activities, charts.
I wonder, can I get that on Amazon?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Paulette's shaking her head. You have this, Paulette, or you're on mute?
It seems like I do.
Oh, okay.
But tell me the title again. Building
Academic Language, 2nd edition by Jeff Swires, and it's grades 5 through 12.
I have so many books that people give me.
Yeah.
I just got another one recently. Actually, he's going to be a keynote speaker at CISC. So.
Who is Jeff Swires?
No, it's a different one. It's upstairs. But anyway.
Well,
I'm sure you can get it on Amazon though. That's why I was like, everything.
Yes. And then this is the other one that I've also used resources from. I don't know if you could see this, but I can type them in it's from Lynn Diaz Rico. She's a professor at Cal State. She actually passed away last year. It's a cross-cultural language and academic development handbook. And it's a complete K-12. This one's K-12, so it's all the way across, and it goes through the different content areas. So if there's resources also in here for syntax, I mean, everything, morphology, all of that's in this one here. So it goes from the very basics, from the foundational skills to going through the content as well.
And what's her name again?
Lynn Diaz Rico,
Okay, thank you.
So these two are great resources here. And actually the books that I'm using to teach my Tuesday class tonight, which when I leave you, I'm going to go teach at 7 o'clock. So again, languages for these steps, the science practices, you can read through this.
And again, what we're using is just the models to represent or describe the scientific process and relationships and collecting data, right? So we either collect data, numerical data, empirical data that we have to, or a diagram, right? And predicting that data. So all of that is just information that you want the students to describe. So again, they could do and draw this information. So not only build one in terms of that physical model, but also represent that physical model in a drawing too. So that's very important. That's what these practices show us here.
If you go back stay on that slide, Mariano.
This one?
No, go back to the one we were just talking about. Right there. So I know Mariano talks a lot about phenomena. All right, ask questions about the observation and phenomena, and why is it happening, how? And again, frames that we have for those students to use academic language and modeling that over and over again when they start speaking. And then I know we've gone through this, the code switching, making sure that students understand that it's okay sometimes to have that language, and we'll remind them, remember, that's recess language. We're going to speak with academic language in class, and it's okay that you have that language in your pocket. But right now we're going to be using academic language for this purpose. And so again, making sure that they understand that how they speak is not incorrect, right? It is just that we're going to switch to academic language right now. And a lot of these resources and sentence frames are just for that purpose. Again, it's another resource you can give your teachers. And then on the next slide. And here we are here, Ms. Bowman. So I think you have the link for this as well. Have you seen this one before?
Never.
Good. So this is another resource that you can, and these are things that students can have in their hands or cut out and use, tell or explain a new idea, I think. Right? I know it will work because the best strategy would be, and again, scaffold to their proficiency level. Because that bridging student may just need I think, but that emergent student is going to need pretty much the entire frame and maybe a word missing. And how to compare ideas. And then also they should understand what those statements are. What is to restate or summarize an idea? What is it to support an idea? And if you look back at our domain sheets that we showed, how they're assessed on this. So it's all connected.
Right.
Question or challenge an idea. That's an important one for our students when you're talking about inquiry and critical thinking. Okay, why? But that doesn't explain what we saw when. Is there more efficient way to? So those are things that they should understand, that they should be questioning and they should be challenging ideas. Right?
And I really love this because a lot of us teachers, right, we expect, well, use academic language. What does that mean? Like, I don't understand what you're saying, right? Well, here you go. This is what we mean. So you tell us, like, begin with a sentence and then just fill in what you are trying to do. And you could have that in terms of the back-to-back kind of like activity that we had, right? So you're describing things or you're talking to them when you're sharing with them, like, why did you go ahead and transform your duck that way? What kind of advantages does this method give over that? But you're actually giving them those tools, giving the students the tools in order for them to have that academic discourse, right? You're just not asking them to have that discourse. How are you going to do that? Here are the tools.
And I'll go back to this because a lot of our teachers are already doing this. And like Dr. Bowman, she's been talking about this for years. When she would do PD at our school, she's already doing this. But this is just a resource and it says it all on here, and it's a nice cutout. But a lot of our teachers are doing all of this already, and just to get them that affirmation that they're doing the right thing, and now with intentionality. So they can go back to their domain sheets and look at that. A lot of them will say, oh, I'm already doing that. But are you doing it intentionally? Are you making sure you've planned and designed a plan behind it? And, what is the outcome, right? Are we monitoring our students as we do this? How is the scaffold going? Or are they still on that I think? Or have they moved to the best strategy would be? So like that scaffold should not, the same sentence frame should not be on their board all year long.
Right. And I think what's important that you just said is that, yes, the teachers are doing a lot of these things, but we have to take them to the next level of how intentional are you in doing them, and are you monitoring what you're doing, as well as monitoring the progress of the students. I think that's the key components that we need to emphasize in our coaching to them as well.
And so this is that piece right there, that teacher discourse moves, strengthen reasoning, teacher discourse moves, right? So are we helping our students clarify his or her thinking? That wait time, are we giving that wait time after questions and after responses? Are we having them elaborate on their answers, or are they saying one word and you're good with that and you move on because time, I need to get to the next lesson. I need to get to the next lesson. marking and emphasizing particular ideas, helping students listen carefully and think about others' ideas. And we just talked about this in one of our meetings here as well, you know, the art of listening. That's really big too. You know, we talk about speaking, we talk about their importance of reading and phonics and things like that and writing, but a lot of times that listening domain is also there and we don't pay that much attention to that. Okay. I'll let you read the others.
And then again, this is just more of those hyperlinks to the California ELD standards, to the LA literacy, to the Common Core math, and you know the new common framework, math framework that's coming, that is very much aligned to the science and those cross-cutting concepts and those science and engineering practices. So it's really aligned now with science too. And so that's what we have here, the California NGSS. And then the both K through 12, and then some of the math framework, the new one that's coming up in there. So that's all this information for you. So if you do need all of that, it is there.
And the math frameworks one that's coming out, chapter 2 is all on English learners. Okay.
So we'd like to thank you again very much for being here, taking your time out of your busy schedule to join us, and to thank Paulette for showing the great resources that LEGO Education has to bring to you. So we appreciate all your times, and let us know if you need any guidance, any support, and then we're here to walk the path with you with any of these strategies as well. So again, my name is Mariano Aranda. I'm the Curriculum Coordinator for Science, and
I'm Rosemary Hyder, Curriculum Coordinator as well. Thank you guys, and thank you, Ms. Bowman, Dr. Bowman, for sticking us with us. I'm sure
I had a
they,
good time.
oh good.
I had a good time. I learned some things.
And they'll be watching this recording.
yes, thank you.
Well,
very
actually,
much.
I'm going to be sharing this with the administrators soon after we leave here. I'm going to put it in an email.
Oh, awesome.
Perfect. I learned as well, so it's all good. So you have some great resources.
Oh, good.